Hello, everybody. Today is June 4th. We have already done robots, so we're doing security today and nonsense. It's Friday.
And we're saving the mango for next week.
Next week, yeah. Oh, and probably some of the alcohol. Maybe we'll do drunk news. I don't know. We'll see.
People have begged us to do a drunk news like mid-year. We always just do it at Christmas time. Maybe we'll do one.
Now that you've teased it, they won't stop.
Yeah.
It's mid-year. Why
Yeah,
not?
it's Christmas in Christmas in July, June.
It's almost exactly mid-year, right? Well, apps. Let's talk about some security. And apps on the app stores are pretty much the antithesis of security. They are terrible.
Now, in that Epic versus Apple lawsuit, I heard Tim Cook tell me that the whole reason they exist and make billions and trillions of dollars is because people want security, and that's their business model. And please, judge, please don't make us change our business model.
Well, in terms of iOS, this is weird because they do almost always catch the bad guys. None of them slip through the cracks ever, which makes this weird.
Scammy iOS app discovered that refuses to open unless you give it a good review. What? Tim Cook said this was impossible.
Yikes. So that's a new thing that they'll do.
Why isn't the Epic lawyer on top of this for the case, pointing this out every time Tim Cook is like, but the users are stupid.
May 26th, this came out later, afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll talk about that next week.
Everything's at rest until the judge decides in August.
Oh, that's right, yeah. There won't be any real decision in August, I bet.
Yeah, the judge didn't seem like they wanted to invent new case law, so.
Here's another one of these things that I guess maybe a year or 2 years ago, whenever we were talking about it, exactly like the China virus, this couldn't possibly be true.
China.
We would never let this happen. This is too crazy. I mean, the world, we're just not going to do this because imagine how this could go wrong. And yet.
Google to use patient data to develop healthcare algorithms for hospital chain. The company will get access to anonymized patient data. I can't wait for the algorithm to detect that your DNA is hopeless and just like, no, it doesn't make sense for us to spend any resources on you.
Didn't we? I remember reading about how few data points it takes to de-anonymize.
It was a shockingly low number.
And when it comes to healthcare, a particular risk, because your combination of diseases and badness could be very, very exclusive to you. I could really hear that stuff. You got some ASMR going on because it's like the bubbles.
The mic's not picking it up, or if it is, I don't hear it.
Now
Maybe the viewers will.
You're listening to
the webcam.
So, yeah. And Chrome extensions are perhaps a close second when it comes to the app stores in terms of just complete, you cannot trust them. You'd be crazy to install a lot of these things. We get a lot of comments. Now, we let the paywall stay up for other reasons. That's just sort of like to protect ourselves from, Bloomberg suing us because we're using. I mean, think about the stories we did in the business section.
Yeah.
That is not that far from a real reality. And but people are like, why don't you just run this random extension that I use? This is why.
Thousands of Chrome extensions are tampering with security headers.
Why would they do that?
In order to work properly.
In some cases, it is just convenience, but you can easily see how this could be used by a bad actor.
Yeah.
And what can you do about it? Well, not much.
We can't have cross-site scripting because we have a very strict security header. Not if they have this bookmark plugin, you don't. What?
And do you remember, I think it was the previous generation, when there was a real debate about ownership of console games.
Yes.
And Microsoft was like, why would you ever need to own it? Why don't you just rent it from us? And people, they rebelled against that heavily.
Yeah.
And so it didn't work. But hey, the frog was still in the pan. And this is where we are now with that frog.
Xbox Series X DRM makes it near impossible to play games offline. Can you imagine how much less popular the SNES or like the Sega 16 would be if all old versions of that mysteriously didn't work anymore?
Yeah. But I don't think it'll affect this as much.
No.
Because I think people are so used to it. Yeah. Unfortunate if you're like travel, if you're doing some kind of work in the African bush on a metered connection, but you're going to take your Xbox with you because you're going to have a lot of downtime, bad news. Real bad news.
Or if you're just like my younger cousin who just has shitty Eastern Kentucky internet, so he can't play online a lot of times.
Oh, have they experienced this kind of thing?
I don't think he's had this particular issue, but like I remember when he got his game console, he was like, "Oh, I have to play games that are compatible with offline." Like he couldn't do a lot of online multiplayer stuff.
I definitely fielded a lot of tech support when the original Xbox launched. I fielded a lot of tech support questions from family and extended relatives because they were, on dial-up, and they were like, "I don't understand why I can't do anything with this console," and it's only gotten worse since then.
Yeah, dial-up is definitely gonna hurt you, or if you're on Viasat.
Yeah.
Now, usually when we talk about people who accidentally incriminate themselves on social media, they're doing something very overt, like torturing someone to death and filming it, or holding a gun and money and talking about the crime that they just did. Things that it doesn't take a genius to figure out. But when there are geniuses after you, you shouldn't post to social media at all.
Liverpool drug dealer who used EncroChat jailed after cheese picture has been analyzed for fingerprints.
What just an incredible accidental ad campaign for mature Blue Stilton.
Oh, obviously.
I would like to try.
Really what it's about.
Engagement challenge. Scour your local grocery store for mature Blue Stilton.
So yeah, fingerprint in the picture, and they were able to track him down. Now he's doing 12 years. 12 years for this picture.
Now, you might remember from other past episodes of the news, EncroChat were the secure phones that were basically for criminals, but the police managed to seize control of the network, and it was not end-to-end encrypted.
What do you think the odds are that they serve mature Blue Stilton at the Liverpool prison?
0.0%.
I don't know.
They don't get real cheese in prison.
They have much nicer prisons than we do. Much nicer.
You might be able to pay up $100 to get one through the commissary.
They probably, they do mark stuff up a crazy amount like that. So, malware. A couple of hot malware items, and this one is pretty insidious because with this, they could get a lot of very sensitive stuff from you.
Yeah.
And there's not much you can do about it.
Malware caught using macOS 0 Day to secretly take screenshots because macOS is so secure. Now, from the Apple versus Epic lawsuit, the guy from Apple was saying, yes, the macOS platform is a twisted, disease-ridden, filthy. We want to make it like the iOS store. And so he would say, this is a result of filthy, filthy users being so stupid that they do this to themselves, when in fact this was an Apple flaw.
Yikes. Do you remember last week when we found about our a good friend, Butt Friend 3000?
Oh, I love that. That's the best username.
Yeah. Your username can get you in trouble. But this young man claims that he was not at fault. And yet, much like Apple and Google, the school system was not wanting to hear from him directly. They were like, no, the automated decision has been made. You get no appeal.
Gwinnett student challenges suspension over Zoom bombing allegations. So there was somebody, he was already in the Zoom classroom chat, but somebody that shared his IP address was trying to get in with all sorts of offensive usernames. But when the Atlanta Journal-Constitution looked into it, a lot of people had the same IP address. Zoom may not have sent the correct IP addresses.
I am almost positive. Did we not get a Supreme Court ruling that an IP address does not represent a human being?
Yep.
This kid's got a hell of a lawsuit.
Yep.
That Atlanta school system should start saving. Here's an item. Did you have any idea these existed?
Yes.
This is incredible.
Yep.
But I got to wonder, couldn't that create a huge hazard to other motorists?
No, not necessarily. The elderly person version of this is not particularly violent.
But this is on a motorcycle.
Yeah.
So, okay, I come off the motorcycle. You're behind me in a car. And I expand to 5 times my normal size.
Yep.
You're going to hit me.
You were going to be hit regardless of whether or not.
Yeah, but I would have gone over you.
Oh,
and
maybe.
I would have been fine.
Maybe.
Yeah. But that's not the story here. The story here is that's got to be criminal, right?
I'm pretty sure I've seen this in every dystopian sci-fi series that there is.
How can this not be criminal?
Hackaday says, do you really own it? A motorcycle airbag requires an additional purchase to inflate. So you buy this jacket, but then there's a subscription. It's like, true peak capitalism.
But the cost of the subscription is the big story here.
Yeah.
$400.
Ooh.
Yeah.
If you don't have the subscription, it won't inflate.
A load of bullshit.
Yeah. That is I guess you'll make some money there in the beginning, but the PR has got to kill you.
Yeah.
Ultimately, right?
If they rule against that, they're like, no, you can't do that. Would that mean that you could also be like, because you're essentially charging a subscription service for like something that keeps you healthy and safe. Could you do that against like insurance as well?
Well, they do make that argument that like a safety device should be exempt from all of those things because it is a safety device. And also, there's the argument for like, what if your subscription runs out in transit?
Or your subscription runs out for your brakes.
Yeah. Or how often does the subscription call home? And what if you're out of area? What happens then?
Yeah.
A lot of questions here. All of them point back to
Maybe don't do that.
an eventual
Don't buy
lawsuit.
this.
Peak capitalism, right here. There was a book where that you had to pay to use it for the convenience of using the door, and it was like $5, and like the characters were getting in arguments with the door constantly because the door wouldn't give them any more credit.
I don't know that one. Not much different though, is it?
No.
Was it? I think it was Nero's Rome where they had the fire brigades, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they would. Some people accuse them of starting the fires, but when there was a fire, they would show up and they would be like, "Yeah, we're not really looking to put this out. We'll buy it from you though."
For pennies on the dollar.
And if you negotiated, they sat and watched it burn until you met their price. I don't see much different here.
No.
This seems very similar to me.
Leaked emails show crime app Citizen is testing on-demand security force. Citizen will deploy private security forces at the request of app users, according to documents and sources. Privately funded security force? What could possibly go wrong?
I got to think that if you contacted these people before you contacted the police and something real bad happened, like you had to shoot somebody, you're in a lot of trouble. So, but then again, maybe you'll get, like official bless by the police unions or whatever. I doubt it.
Kind of doubt it.
Worst, I think more likely what's going to happen is you're going to call 911 and they're going to have access to that other database they bought from somebody. And they're like, "Oh, I see here that you're a Citizen Brigade user." Click. Don't call us anymore. The Ireland last week experienced a ransomware attack against its medical network. And that's very disturbing. And you're like, "Oh my God, what if it happens to us?" And Reuters is here to tell us it already did.
FBI says Conti ransomware gang has hit 16 U.S. health and emergency networks. The FBI said they're investigating. But yeah, it's not a great start because they've made a lot of money from that, which is only going to encourage and embolden them.
First responders, man, what a dark thing to ransomware. You're ransomwaring ambulances.
There's a few ransomware gangs that were like, we're going to explicitly exclude healthcare. But then there are other ransomware gangs like this one that's like, yeah, more for us. Sounds
But
good.
it doesn't matter how many do that because the vacuum will always get filled.
Yeah.
There's always a terrible person
Yeah.
ready to step
We'll go
up.
deeper.
Yeah. And they'll take the risk too. Well, we have been learning for the past few weeks about how small we can get these transistors, and it's getting ridiculous. But what you might not think about when you think about how small those are getting are all those magnetic fields that are working with them are still kind of the same size. And these little bitty transistors have a weakness.
Google says that Rowhammer attacks are gaining some range as RAM is getting smaller. We're just about to enter the DDR5 era, if these leaks and everything else is to be believed. And DDR5, boy, it adds a lot for error correction, even in quote-unquote non-error correcting memory, because you just can't produce stuff this small without having errors in the substrate and errors in transit and errors in storage. There's still room for error correcting memory, explicitly error correcting memory with extra memory chips. Don't get me wrong. It's just that we've gotten to the point where yeah, it's getting kind of dicey.
So they can now jump 3 or 4 bits away with the Rowhammer, which makes it way more effective. Good luck with that. And this one at first seemed like a really amazing headline, and it is true. They do have something here, and it is an exploit, but it would probably be pretty difficult to use in reality. But this, I mean, if we look back at
Spectre?
Yeah, Spectre, Apple, because like, oh, look what these idiots did with Spectre, and then they turned around and did the exact same thing.
A shy Linux dev reveals that Miracle's flaw in the Apple M1 and pokes fun at similar flaws. So it's a flaw in the M1 that allows one process to communicate with another process, even though it's not explicitly supposed to be able to do that. And because it's, again, related to flaws in the ARM architecture and like how doing out of order execution and some other things like that.
And just like Spectre, there is no fix. Fix it in the silicon next time around. But the M1s are forever poisoned. It is a 2-bit attack, literally a 2-bit attack. So they would have to be very dedicated to exfiltrate with that. But it could be done. Maybe the Chinese are working on that. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. How long would it take them to get a cryptocurrency key? It'd take a while.
Yeah.
We talked about the big Cox lawsuit that is going to destroy everything if it's allowed to go, because they're just going to, I mean, that kind of monetary strike is not something they can deal with, so they will hurt their customers to avoid that. And this is more of that kind of garbage because the media companies are not honest.
Comcast subscriber receives a DMCA notice for downloading Ubuntu. What? That's got to be a mistake. But then you look and it's like, no, the hash matches the Ubuntu desktop ISO image. And it says, under penalty of perjury, we swear that the rights holders have said to do this. In reality, this is probably the ISP just saying, what are you torrenting? Don't torrent that. It's probably piracy. But it's not actually piracy.
Pretty much anything peer-to-peer,
Yeah.
they're going to flag.
Just don't stop doing that.
And that would have put that person on the list for Cox to disconnect.
Yep.
Absolutely. False positive, then what are you going to do about it? Going to get somebody on the phone at Cox?
No, it's not worth the $1 billion risk in the lawsuit. Again, the theme of this show is the algorithm is oppressing you. There's nothing you can do about it. And it's going to lead to a breaking point. Like everything is going to collapse because no one can live like this.
The story, I put it in here because it's about black holes. And we know that Krista has an irrational fear of black holes. But one thing about it, Krista, is this does give you a pretty good description of what it might be like to enter one, which we have to assume you will someday.
Obviously, that's definitely going to happen. You get spaghettified. Everyone knows that. You get turned into pasta.
Headline.
What?
Read the headline.
Oh, sorry. Stranger than anything dreamed up by sci-fi. Will we ever understand black holes? No.
It talks about
answer
the
is no.
spaghettification and some other stuff.
Yeah, they describe it as probably being an uncomfortable situation to be in.
I don't like it. I do like this visualization they have in the article. That looks cool.
This top one, yeah.
Yeah.
I would never think of black holes as being orange. I guess that's the light that's being sucked in.
Yeah, I think so.
Just think about that,
Spooky.
Kristen. As you're going to sleep tonight, just think about that. Going in feet first. Your little toes just getting stretched out.
Like mozzarella.
And the other thing that we know that you're irrationally afraid of is, of course, velociraptors.
Right. I saw Jurassic Park at entirely too young of an age.
Which doesn't exist. But I'm here to tell you that you should perhaps be more afraid of the Stegosaurus. Because in 2021, no one has died from a velociraptor.
Yet. Missing man found dead inside Spanish dinosaur statue. Police say it's likely the 39-year-old got stuck trying to retrieve his mobile phone after dropping it.
And then
That's
died.
horrific.
Now, here's the thing about this that confused me. They describe this as a paper mache statue. How strong can paper mache get?
If you layer it up, probably pretty strong.
Yeah.
I feel like I could break out of a paper mache dinosaur.
Well, like, it looks like it's in a public square and it's out in the open, so it was probably also like waterproofed with some sort of material.
I think it is quite big as well. They claim he probably climbed in during the mouth. Do you think he was trying to film to see what was inside of it?
Probably.
Drop the phone. And then nobody heard his screams as he died, I guess. Or maybe he was just really polite and didn't want to bother anybody.
He was just tapping on the side like, please, anybody?
Also, another great reason to always carry a knife. My apologies to the European viewers.
Literally illegal for them to carry that. They can't even carry a spoon.
That's Great Britain, not Europe.
Different, technically.
This is not the first time we've seen this, but it is getting more and more mainstream acceptance. Maybe I'm just showing my age here, but if I was a parent, and I'm certainly in the age group that could be a college-aged parent, I would be furious if I found out my kids were spending my money on this.
College credit for playing video games at some California campuses, it's happening. My takeaway was a little different. It was, we can make money from esports? Yes. Let's encourage that.
They force you to take a gym class when you're in college and undergrad, so screw it. Fine, then let's do this too. I had to play parachute as a 20-year-old.
I mean, that
in a gym class in college.
I think my life probably would have been better if I would have been properly educated about diet and exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Turns out most of that stuff is garbage. They've been lying to us about that. I had to do something completely counterintuitive. Tom Cruise going to space.
Yes.
He's filming a movie, but Putin says not so fast. We're doing it first. So now it's a space race. Remember that the other space race we had? This is not as exciting. But this is something that seems like it is picking up a lot of traction in the entertainment world.
Astronauts on set. Space station may host a wave of TV shows and films. It's going to be like in Family Guy, where it's like, remember that one time I was on the space station, and then it just cuts to the space station, and it's the same in every show.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to do much exciting stuff up there.
No.
Tom Cruise, though, is famous for doing his own stunts and being willing to do the really dangerous stuff. Do you think they will let him?
Yeah, he'll show up and it's like, I brought my own det cord. And they're like, what? How did you smuggle det cord on board? It's like, don't worry about it.
Can you imagine the shock, the national shock, if we just lost Tom Cruise and he was just drifting out into space?
What if he secretly thinks he's on a mission? Like for the
a Mission
the
Impossible
thing.
Xenu.
Yeah.
He sneaks in, reconfigures some of the scanners to look for those DC-10s on the other side of Jupiter. I could totally see him believing that. Easily. Here's a, fiction. This is art, life imitating art, and vice versa, but in a really dark way. How did who's paying for this? How did a group of people sit around a conference room table and say, you know what, I think we get away with this?
Kevin Spacey has been cast in the first film since being accused of sexual misconduct. It's going to be an Italian film with an Italian director. And the director said, I don't think he did it.
Do you think that they were sitting around and it's like, there's no way we'll get away with this? And somebody was like, cuties?
They did get away with that, didn't they?
Do you remember cuties?
Or wait, no, that was French.
We wait long enough, people remember.
They're close enough.
Then we can just recast them again instead of finding new talent that doesn't, do these kinds of things.
He does not play a character who is accused of his crimes. He is playing a lawyer who represents a character who is accused of the same crimes he was accused of.
I think the justice for cuties thing is like, if all of those little girls turn out to be like well-rounded and well-adjusted, nothing bad happens. But there should always be the specter of like, if enough of them, die of like a drug overdose or have other, some other unfortunate circumstance that they're a part of, that all of the people involved with that are punished on a sliding scale.
Rico. What about the tens, if not hundreds of thousands of little girls who watched it and found that to be normalized?
Well, if we could have an accounting somehow.
I think we can figure that out. I have to wonder, after looking at this headline, when do we stop believing that these are accidents and start thinking this is just desperate exhibitionism?
Could be.
After the first one, would that not be just at the top of your mind
Every
constantly?
time, yeah.
How does this happen?
MP says he urinated on camera without realizing a month after he was caught naked. Whoops.
I think that's a guy who's just really proud of his junk. He wants people to see it. He's apologized. He also said that he was going to take some time. Oh, I will be stepping aside temporarily from my role as parliamentary secretary and from my committee duties so that I can seek assistance. What sort of assistance can you get for this?
Technical training?
He's getting some sort of implant so he doesn't have to pee on conference calls anymore. Like what?
A permanent catheter.
Artificial bladder.
Colostomy bag. I'll do anything for this job. So yeah, the whole like naked on Zoom thing, I get how it happens once because you're in your own home and your defense is down. But after the first time, I don't see an excuse. Emojis are super popular, but who controls the emoji list? Apple and Google. They are the gatekeepers. They decide who gets to have emojis and who doesn't. And some people now, I guess this is kind of like the Twitter check, right? If you don't have an emoji, are you even...
You're just not even real.
Yeah, is your little municipality even worth having? I don't even know.
CBC.ca says that Quebec needs its own emoji as soon as possible, say legislators in a unanimous vote. Ah, the Quebecois.
How much, if you were Tim Cook, what price would you put on adding a new emoji by request?
10 million.
You think they've got it?
Yeah.
I'm sure they couldn't put that money toward, like housing
No.
or improving the roads or something like that.
Nothing will improve Quebecois life as much as having our own emoji.
And then you got to do it for both keyboards, right?
Hmm.
The Prime Minister of India is not a popular man right now.
To say the least.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
They're having a bit of a problem. The world's been having that problem, but for some reason, it all of a sudden just sparked up in India. But they were already not a big fan of him.
Nope.
He was not a popular leader. And it's hard to speak out in India. You have to be careful. I mean, as we see, the Twitter office,
Yeah.
he'll send the goon squad. So they get creative, and this one is hilariously creative.
The internet has had a field day with a blank ebook on PM Modi's employment growth secrets. The book, credited to Berozgar Bakht, exited the e-commerce platform on Amazon 2 days after it garnered several glowing reviews. So that the Berozgar Bakht means unemployed political affiliation for the people that don't really care for Modi. So it was like, oh, here's his guide to employment, and you open it up and it's just blank. But it's got a lot of ratings. They're like, ah, ha, ha, very funny. This is amazing.
And it's
The cover looks like a shit post.
It's 420 secrets, and that's not 420 Blaze It. 420 is their legal code for the employment thing that didn't work. So yeah, $0. So at least he's not trying to fleece anybody.
Yeah.
Bravo, good sir. Bravo. But yes, of course, this triggered the Gestapo.
Now, when it comes to China, a lot of sensitive things in China that you're not allowed to talk about. Previously, of course, you couldn't talk about Hong Kong very much. They've solved that. But now the big one is Taiwan. They do not care for Taiwan being called a country because according to them, Taiwan is a part of the country of China. And if you say otherwise, they'll notice. They'll notice quickly, and there will be a backlash. And some people really, really want to do business in China. Like maybe in the movie theaters, they want the Chinese people to like them. So they do things that I find disgusting.
John Cena apologizes for describing Taiwan as a country in Mandarin.
How many takes do you think that was?
73.
He might speak Mandarin. I doubt it. That's Fast and the Furious. I didn't know that John Cena was a Fast and the Furious guy. Has anybody not been in Fast and the Furious at this point? Didn't they just release another one? It's amazing how many sequels that thing has. But yeah, his statement, and it wasn't like a friendly statement either. It was just like, yeah, Taiwan's not a country. Sorry, I should have never said that.
That's horrifying.
And he is a rich man too.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to do that.
No.
He just wants to because he wants to be richer still.
That's horrifying.
There's a lot of memes about John Cena, but I don't understand them because I never watched the wrestling at that
It's
time.
his intro music that's like the meme song.
The horns, yeah.
Do 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 do. This is like sad horns when you read this headline. Dun, 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 dun. It's like out of tune.
Or, it starts out as the horns and then it merges into like classical Chinese.
Is that the sound of the
song-
tanks?
The big waving red flag in the background. Krista, you said you saw some cicadas. I still have not.
I have seen a couple out in my yard, and then a friend of mine, lives like in town in an apartment, and she's seen a ton. She sent me a bunch of pictures.
Wow.
There is a substantial colony in my backyard.
Really?
Oh.
Substantial.
Did you, Krista, when you saw those pictures, did you immediately contact the authorities?
No, I didn't. I was just like, ew, gross, and then I went about my day.
That might have been the right move. Oh, girl, you think they're gross?
Well, I have a vivid memory from a kid like playing on a tire swing one year when the cicadas were out, and like I went to push myself off against the tree, and it was covered in cicada corpses, and it was really nasty.
There's a part of my yard that when you walk through it, it's crunchy.
Yeah,
Because they're not dead. It's they've molted or whatever.
Yeah, it's
they're
gross.
They're little crusts or
Yeah.
anything. Well, Krista, you might have done the right thing because, in fact, the authorities are urging people not to contact them when it comes to the cicadas.
Georgia County urges residents to stop calling 911 over cicadas.
The bugs hum at a level so loud, it's roughly the equivalent of a lawnmower.
They are annoying.
Yeah.
I've heard a few, but it's not been that bad out here.
No, you need a bunch of them together to get that, like
That really loud hum, yeah.
the roar, the cicada roar.
They get the bro force thing going where it's like, no, I'm going to be louder. No, I'm going to be louder. No, I'm going to be louder.
But here's the thing. Walk me through what you think in the mind of these people was going to happen after they called the cops on the cicadas.
I just assumed that they were so stupid they had no idea what was happening. Like, I hear a low hum. I don't know what's going on. And they're just like, oh, that's just the cicadas. And then that's the end of the call.
I bet some of them really expected cops to show up, like maybe even a SWAT team, and just start shooting.
Cops are just shooting the ground where the cicadas are. Get down! Put your little wings up!
Just firing into the air.
I don't know where the hum's coming from. I don't know what's happening.
There are probably times in your life where an unexpected hum that just develops one day could be a brain tumor.
The local place, the local place says that every time they have a helicopter or something go over the town low, that one or two people call in and is like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, out there by the
Yeah, it's a
base,
lot.
I hear them every day.
Yeah.
Well, I've been on this bandwagon for a long time, but I feel like this is not
New.
Well, it's not only not new, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because once you accept this, you are free to sort of like shake off the shackles.
I've been trying to get Mom to subscribe to this so she could shake off the shackles, but it's not happening.
Because at this point, when you accept this, then your life, the only thing that you need to do in your life is just maximize the endorphins. That's where I'm at. I'm maximizing my endorphins.
Good news for nihilists. Life is meaningless after all, say philosophers. Researchers underline that this is not bad news. Yeah.
This is a weird stock photo.
They're like, just put some text over it.
Block.
Fine.
Make it like block text. Really extreme. Well, that's basically what it says in the headline. None of it matters. Think about
Store.level1news.com.
Think about Thomas Jefferson, all right? Thomas Jefferson probably, he was enriching himself. Let's not pretend that he wasn't. He was a capitalist for sure. But I'm sure he went out of his way and endured some unpleasantness to try and like improve this country. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
Now he's just a racist piece of garbage. And he will be for the rest of history. None of it mattered. He should not have worried about those things.
Mm.
And neither should you. Store.level1text.com. When you create a program where you request someone to give you comments, a lot of the comments are bad.
Except on Floatplane and Patreon, where everyone loves us.
How about that guy that said, I was wrong about Chomsky? You're wrong.
You're really butthurt about that, huh?
But sometimes, and this is true for us as well, sometimes you get some real gems in the comments. And I really, you know whose comments I love? The USS Liberty incident.
I was going to say, that would have been my guess. Person drunk texts through thought-provoking questions to SC Aquarium's educational number. So if you have a town with an aquarium, it was like, hey, ask us a question, whatever. And so he texted some questions, and it was like, hey, what was it like, in our area 10,000 years ago? And the aquarium was like, well, it was like this, and this is the thing. And then I guess they woke up the next morning after they were sober. There was a link to Twitter there. I saw it.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Gone now. Yeah, it's just
there you
a
go.
link to the aquarium. Oh.
So these were some excellent questions, and to their credit, they answered them.
Yep. And then he thanked them. Was like, oh, I'm sober now. Thank you.
Why do seahorses grab anything they can with their prehensile tail?
Because they're not very good swimmers.
I need to go read that because I want to know.
Well, I just told you why.
Oh, did you already read the answer to that one? So that's cool. I like that, the aquarium is going to help us out with these kinds of things. Now, when you put a form on the internet that someone is allowed to fill out, you got to be careful about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And it's even to the point where, you'll go on a website and it's like, you put in an email address and you click and it's like, oh, we don't have any record of this email address. Oh, you shouldn't do that because that tells the user something that they should not be able to find out from your database.
Yeah.
But they can do a lot more offensive things as well.
Walmart apologizes to people who receive racist emails. So you can fill out your name as some horrible racist thing and then put in somebody else's email, and then Walmart will happily email that person horribly racist things to be like, dear horribly racist thing, we've got your account set up. Please click here to confirm. And it's like,
So stupid.
And someone here did that very thing, and they used what I would say is, at least in the current zeitgeist, the worst word.
Yes.
I imagine you can guess what it is.
Yep.
Has to do with race.
Yeah, you have to guess because we can't say.
We
Because the
certainly
algorithm.
cannot say no.
Yeah.
And a couple of animal stories, just because I love these. And this one is great. I will say I'm furious that they used a stock photo here.
We need to see him.
How
Yeah.
could you
Yeah, this
not
guy looks
go-
pretty trim.
Yeah, you can't go the extra mile here.
Unathletic alligator with terrible arthritis escapes a Wisconsin zoo, but they found him in the woods behind the zoo about 5 hours later.
But they claim that he was, as they say, very unathletic, could barely open his mouth more than 4 inches.
Yeah.
Aw.
And the most... Go ahead.
Or there's a picture. There is a picture if you click on the Facebook link.
Oh, okay.
He looks like a pretty big boy, but everyone's kind of standing on top of him.
But the owner went on to say that, like, I can't imagine this would even be a thing unless this guy just spent the entire pandemic just lifting hard and working out. I don't think that happened.
I can hear that animal's thoughts. It's saying, please kill me.
I've been in prison for so long.
And the picture of the owner, I don't know if you guys are looking at the Facebook page. Like, if you asked me who owns an alligator, this man's face would, like, come up in my head.
It looks a little bit like Will Ferrell and Hulk Hogan had a...
Well, that entire staff has a real Tiger King vibe to it.
Yeah.
I mean,
You think-
I'm just getting the Will Ferrell, Hulk Hogan vibe off that guy. I don't know.
You think that any of those guys might be ex-felons?
In America, 1 out of 3 people is an ex-felon. So, yeah, probably.
But that was the Tiger King's thing. Like, he would only hire people who were so down and out that they had no choice but to depend on him.
Yeah.
It worked for a while. And I love a good, like, sort of David and Goliath animal story. Those are always feel-good stories. Although this one is more like mob murder
Yeah.
animal story.
Urchin mobs team up to butcher sea stars that prey on them. The spiny invertebrates pin the sea star's arms with the overwhelming predator prey reversal. So, yeah, poor sea star had its, and that's where its sensory stuff is too. So that they attack that first.
So you can see this guy has been urchined, and these missing limbs here are because of that. And I believe they have a picture of.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. The attack.
An attack in
progress.
progress.
They didn't know that this was a thing until they accidentally. Well, they temporarily put a sea star in a tank with urchins, because if you put a lot of sea stars in a tank with urchins, they'll eat all the urchins. But because there were more urchins than sea stars, they were able to gang up on them. Not unlike
the
humans
means of
and lions
production.
in the same exhibit.
Or prison gangs. You got to be careful how you balance the power there.
What, Krista?
It sees the means of production.
Seize the means of computation.
Or regeneration, in the case of the starfish.
Yeah.
Starfish are when I was a kid, ate my yellow tang out of our saltwater tank, and I was very upset because that was my favorite fish.
Oh, so you should celebrate. You should get an urchin t-shirt.
Just support them on Patreon. Urchins.patreon.com.
Oh, and more stories about Florida. Because Florida they've sort of branched off. They've forked. They've forked from the rest of the country. They're doing their own thing.
It's not just national news, it's international news now.
What do you mean?
This is the BBC reporting on this.
Oh, yeah. BBC does a lot of it. They have, it's BBC America. They've got an American one. But, yeah, and in some cases I agree with what Florida is doing. I don't think I agree with this one.
No.
I mean, this is really unnecessary. Do you remember when we had to do this for that one project?
Yes.
Like, we didn't do it, but
Yeah.
there was a person who was being paid a non-trivial amount of money and was spending their day photoshopping nipples out. Pretty much the same thing is going on here.
Yeah. Florida high school alters 80 immodest yearbook photos of students. Let me insert an important word in that headline. Female students only. There were plenty of pictures of male students not even wearing shirts. Those were completely okay.
This was a great, break point here because look at that harlot. What a slut. Also, you think that's because they took a picture of the actual book on the right?
Yes.
It looks terrible.
Yeah, I think that's
Yeah.
probably what happened.
So,
There's a Twitter thread with a bunch of these, and there's one where they show like boys wearing like Speedos in a swim class, and that's okay.
Yeah. There's some there. They've blurred some of it, and it's just like, Florida, come on. Stop embarrassing the rest of the country. I mean, come on, Florida, come on.
does anybody think that that girl looks to be, what do you think, 15, 16? Are there any 15, 16-year-old people in this country who do not constantly they're just not constantly thinking about breasts? Even the
Probably
girls.
not. Yeah.
The girls are thinking about, how do my breasts measure up? And the boys are just like, it's constantly thinking about breasts. Are you really going to stop it with this nonsense? So what they're going to do, here's the crazy part. They're trying to get back the yearbooks that have already been sold. They're going to try to collect them all. The ones that haven't been sold, they're going to print out new pages, razor blade out the old pages, and glue them in there, and then sell them. How many man hours?
What an amazing waste of effort.
Shocking.
We should just pave the planet and put in the super galactic highway. Nothing of value was lost.
That girl, oh no, that's the senior yearbook, right?
Yeah.
So that girl might be 18. She's going to be on Reddit Gone Wild next week. All this is going to be for nothing. Oh, we already did this one, didn't we?
Yep.
That was the Charlie bit
Charlie
my finger
bit
story.
my finger.
It is like, does it go in nonsense? Does it go in business? I don't know.
I've encountered it twice and made a different decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I think we can agree on, no matter what your background, no matter what your belief system, one thing we know about Jesus, he needs money. Constantly. He always needs money. And the Mormons have found a great way to give it to him.
Mormon Church cashes in on GameStop and Tesla stock craze. So they were able to invest, they were able to buy the dip, diamond hands, smooth brain, whatever. And it's worked out really well for them monetarily.
They made like $8 million. Or maybe they sold for $8 million. It wasn't all profit, but still a tidy profit.
Somebody's going to have a lot of fun now that all the tax returns are in. They're going to go through all the nonprofits and churches and stuff and look for similar things in nonprofits. This is probably not the first story we're going to hear like this, in all honesty.
Aren't they still exempt from that?
Yeah, but you still have to report it. Like, you still have to report your income, and it's a matter of public record. Otherwise, you get into corruption and stuff. At least around here it is.
But I mean, I don't think it's like, should we not have that? Because they invest in other stuff, churches.
No, yeah, it's fine. Yeah. It's fine. I just would be curious to know.
Well, a duo of Tinder stories. Have we ever had 2 Tinder stories in a row? And the first one, now I've seen a lot of screenshots where people they go to great lengths to try to come up with a decent pickup line because you're trying to separate yourself from the pack.
Yeah.
You know, if it's an attractive girl, she's probably getting hundreds of messages every day. Somehow you have to stand out, and people really get good at it. But perhaps you try too hard and you go over into like the scary situation, and Tinder wants to help you with that.
Tinder launches a new quote-unquote "Are you sure?" feature to prevent inappropriate pickup lines. It's like, oh, you know what? Thanks, Tinderbot. You're right.
I bet of the subset of people who need this feature, very few would ever heed its warnings.
Every day we get a little bit closer to the Futurama future that Matt Going envisioned, where like everything is like a robot to talk to you, and it's like, oh, it's thanks bucket robot, thanks Tinder robot.
Yeah, like the one that's listening to us.
Yeah,
making sure we don't say things we're not supposed to.
Does it reduce inappropriate languages by 10%?
I guess that's considerable, right?
Maybe that's only the people who are drunk swiping, who are like, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't send that because I am drunk right now.
I don't know. What of those 10%? How many would have been successful though?
Some small percentage.
Some guys operate solely on that percentage.
Yeah.
It's the Merv pickup line attack.
Well, we've killed all the cicadas on the hillside, but...
And finally, I thought I remembered people guaranteeing us this was never going to happen.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I seem to distinctly remember it. But here it is.
Dating apps are making it easier to swipe right for a match who's vaccinated. This is on NPR. So it's like you put in your status, and yeah, there you go. This is different than the other 2 things that we talked about with regard to your status.
But how can they ever confirm it? Because it's medical data.
I guess you would have to put in a picture of your little card or whatever. But
that's medical data. They can't ask for that.
I bet they aren't confirming it. They're probably just like, oh, just checkbox.
But, oh yeah, I see what you're saying. So they won't flag you unless you give it to them, but see, that's still coercion.
Yeah.
Still coercion. I got nothing else to say about that.
Yeah.
We should thank Morgan.
Thank you, Morgan. The soda was delicious. And there'll be more next week, probably.
Oh, you think
you
we're
found
getting
a new
more shipments?
No, there's more stuff to drink that's different.
Oh, yeah. What did you say, Krista?
There's a new favorite from that box, the tangerine one.
I do like the tangerine. I've only got one more can of the tangerine, and I think I'll save it, but it's a very satisfying, thirst-quenching drink. It really is.
I don't know if we get this here, but we do have these like sparkling orange sodas here.
Yeah.
So maybe you could find an
equivalent,
a different brand that's the same kind of thing.
It'd be worth trying. If they could have this kind of an experience with more of an orangey taste, it'd probably be perfect. That'd be A+. A++.
Something to look forward to, chat. All right.
All right.
We'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
Thanks.